Welcome to the FE Insights podcast, a series of podcasts to bring professionals working in the field up to speed with the latest developments, presented by Safaraz Ali, Chief Executive of the national training provider, the Pathway Group.
Welcome to FE Podcast. This is a podcast where we discuss anything to do with further education, work-based learning, and the welfare to work sector. This is our third edition. And I've got a lovely guest all the way from Essex who's joined us. His company used to be called Essex, but it's now changed it to EEVT, and it's the one and only Steve Lawrence. Welcome, Steve.
Hello, Seth, and lovely to be here.
So, as you know, Steve, this is a podcast that we launched a little while back, and we're here to talk about the further education sector predominantly. And we love this word called insights. So this is a little bit about insight knowledge and viewpoints and a little bit behind the headlines. And it's about, there's no right or wrong here. It's about our own opinions, our views, and what's going on in our mind. So before we kick off to that, I want to introduce yourself properly in terms of your experience and breadth of knowledge that you have in terms of the particular sector and in terms of my research. And because we know each other quite well, I've been going through my emails and sort of bits and bobs, and I've come across, and I was counting earlier on, about 20 jobs at least on your CV, ranging from obviously training manager, recruitment, welfare to work, EMI, a range of things. And just tell us a little bit about what's got you up to here and your experiences in life before we get into.
I suppose at a young age, I had a very traumatic childhood. And I met a gentleman who sort of acted as a mentor to me. And I worked with him for quite a few years. And unfortunately, he died. And his company was taken over by Thorn EMI. Essentially, a lot of my job was training people in the commercial world to be salespeople, and also training engineers on how to, if you like, do installations. A lot of this was in private houses and so forth.
So just in terms of that, I mean, one of the things in terms of feedback, and we're always after feedback, is that a number of people did email me to say they want to know a little bit more about our guests. Last two episodes, I went straight into what's going on in the sector. Let's talk business. Let's talk shop. Yes, we know some of these people, and they are well-known figures within the industry. But you only know sometimes what's on LinkedIn and some of the recent activity, and it's good to know a little bit about the history behind the person. So, if you allow me, in terms of my research, I've got the Thorn EMI and the fact that you're a corporate trainer and you're in the training sector. But you've got a range of sort of qualifications, particularly in the sector in terms of delivery, D31, 32, 33, 34, all of those sort of qualifications, training manager, and really experience in mid-level management, then experience in executive sort of management. And then, you've moved then for the last sort of 21, 22 years in a role which is sort of consultancy type role and helping business owners in the sector and helping businesses who are looking for growth or seeking growth, helping businesses that may have a problem, bit of a problem solving, a little bit of troubleshooting, aspirations in terms of growth. And have I summarised that a little bit? Okay.
Yeah, I suppose I take two key times. When I was with SVS and essentially that became part of Thorn EMI, I then had a car accident and I was off of work for quite some time. And I wasn't too sure, because we just do what we like to do and what we enjoy doing or what we have to do. But in that time that I was off work, I was not sure where I was going.
Okay.
And someone said to me, what you need to do is go to college and learn to type. And I thought to myself, why do I need to type? So he said, well, I'll introduce you to someone. And they introduced me to a lady, and she explained to me there's a thing called a computer.
Yeah.
And virtually the computer will have a keyboard which is very similar to a typewriter. And actually getting used to typing, you'll be okay when the computers come in. And I studied with the RSA typing, and I sort of failed. I didn't do very well. So I had to go back for another term. And when I went back for another term, I was ahead of the people that had started that term. And so people would say to me, oh, do you know how you do this? And I'd say, yeah, you do that, you do that. And I'd explain to them different things. And my teacher said to me, you're actually teaching people. You should go into teaching.
Yes.
And that sort of got me thinking. And it was whether I go into child side of teaching or adult. And to be honest with you, I thought the adult side would be easier. Okay. And I also had some experience in terms of teaching adults and training adults how to do things. I then had a sort of epiphany because I was doing a teacher training course, and part of that teacher training course, I had to go and do like an internship at a training company. And this was a catalyst for me because I was waiting to see the managing director of this company. I was in the waiting room, and there was a gentleman beside me whose parents had come over from Jamaica, and they'd come over in the Windrush. And he was there sitting next to me, and I only found out about this afterwards, that his parents had come over on the Windrush. But I sort of said, I thought he was perhaps there for a similar job for myself. And I said to him, how'd you do? You know, what you doing? He said, oh, I've come here for training. So I said, oh, right. I said, what are you doing? He said, health and safety. So I said, why is that? So he said, I've lost my job. So I said, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. So he said, because I can't read or write. And then I thought to myself, here we are, this fantastic country, and there's a guy here who's lost his job because he can't read or write, and he can't read the directions on health and safety notices, on items like chemicals. And I thought, that can't be right. You know, we're not a third world country at that time. We're you know. And I thought, this is so sad. So that really was a catalyst for me going into training. And then I started doing lots of different courses and so forth. I then became a centre manager and a training manager of a training company. The second epiphany was when I was taken on by Reading Partnership, and I was headhunted by them. And it was for the first New Deal. And it was the pilot New Deal in North East Essex. And I was like a regional manager for all the different job centres.
Okay, I'm talking about money and talking about DWP and ESFA, and it's at times it's like never they meet in terms of the funding streams and so forth, and that's a conversation that we've probably had 10 years back, and probably a conversation we'll have 10 years from now. It's never going to be never the twain, as they say, never the me. But DWP have got a flagship program called Kickstart.
Yeah,
Kickstart, obviously Rishi Sunak's sort of brainchild and so forth, and that's been extended. From your experience and knowledge in terms of providers who have taken the opportunity, and even employers who have taken the opportunity to get involved with Kickstart, how's that been, just in terms of a little bit of personal insight from yourself?
I work with a charity that does about £10 million a year, and they've taken on about 3 Kickstart youngsters.
Yeah.
And I've been involved in seeing them every so often.
Yeah.
And they are really doing well, and they are, if you like, they exemplify young people who want to get on.
Yes.
I also work with another company that is a gateway for Kickstart. And they've found that, yes, they've got a lot of people into work, but they could have got a lot more into work. The red tape and the speed of the DWP wasn't conducive to that churn, if that makes sense. There was a sort of big problem with, if you like, the red tape side.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, they have, as you say, extended it, which is great. But there has been a dichotomy. The dichotomy is you've got apprenticeships, and they're giving the employers X amount of money to take on an apprentice. They're also pushing traineeships.
Yes.
And they're pushing Kickstart.
Yes.
And all of those 3 could have the same client.
So you're fishing in the same pond potentially.
Fishing in the same pond. And I think they could have perhaps focused on the Kickstart, left the traineeship where it was, or they could have, if you like, made the traineeship more like a Kickstart and not done the Kickstart.
ESF or ESFA and DWP. So DWP is obviously funding Kickstart.
Yeah.
ESFA is pushing the traineeships.
Yes.
But if we're us to spend ESFA money, we need the job centres of the DWP. And so you've got an element where the DWP, potentially their priority is Kickstart. So
it's chicken and the egg.
So you've got that going, and then they're trying to please training providers and have got their own targets. So, the gateway providers are in a position where they can do more, and there is a demand there, but DWP have got their own targets as well, and employers have got their own targets. So it becomes a little bit of a balancing act, and everybody's trying to, hit all the boxes, and sometimes they're not being met.
Yeah, and it's a shame because there is good thoughts behind it all.
The intentions are pure and the intentions are good.
Yeah.
But it's about implementation more with most
implementation
things and execution, as you know. And that's the same with business owners and leadership within the training sector. So, okay, a little bit of trouble with Kickstart. We've got some traineeships. There's new funding potentially available for traineeship 16 to 18. Obviously, the procurement contract that took place. There's hit and misses with most of these procurement rounds.
I have a big problem in my head.
Okay.
And my problem is you have to have a grade 1 or a grade 2 Ofsted. Logically speaking, there haven't been many full Ofsted inspections because of COVID. And the ones that are a grade 1 or a grade 2, most probably were already doing traineeships. And yes, they've said, well, if you had a 19 plus traineeship contract, then you could go for it.
Yes.
But logically speaking, they would have been doing it anyway. Okay. So they're not really bringing new people into the marketplace. There's very few people that could actually go for this procurement, even though there's a big fanfare around the procurement.
Okay.
And I think there's also this thing about you can't subcontract. And that also puts some people out of the scope that could do some very good work very locally. If the primes could actually subcontract their traineeships to them, those people will be able to bring in a lot more focus locally, if that makes sense. And I also think there's a problem with the traineeships in terms of the logic of the flexibility of it. It's supposed to be very flexible, and to a degree it did become flexible. But they now seem to be, having this, if you like, thought process that it's a stepping stone to apprenticeships.
Right.
But that's not necessarily so.
Okay.
It's just as well that someone gets a job out of it and goes on to employment. So I think it needed, like you say, the DWP to sit down with the ESFA and come together and create a new package, which is half of this and half of that will encompass everything, if that makes sense.
Okay. I mean, there's the 16 to 18 procurement as well. That's taking place as well. What's generally the appetite, in your view, from providers who are, are they looking to?
There's a lot that want to do it, but they can't do it because they haven't got the grade 1 or grade 2, and they're also in devolved areas.
Right.
So then they didn't have their own funds for traineeships before.
Okay.
So
from a funding perspective, what other game in town is, if I can use that phrase, is there? What other things can provide a look at?
I mean, there's the big one is the HGV at the moment, and the boot camps, the IT boot camps.
So the skills boot camps, which is all sort of recent news in terms of the shortage, and we've all felt the shortage and so forth. But is that something that you think people provide? Say, for example, if you're a care provider, or you're in a childcare or something else, how easy is it for a provider to switch in?
Not for the HGV.
No.
And even so, for the IT side,
is there enough trainers out there? Is there enough people out there?
You've hit the nail on the head there.
Digital as well.
Digital has become very much the in thing.
Is there enough trainers that are qualified?
Is there enough trainers? Quite correct.
People can train, but are they the ones who've got the qualifications? And you can tick all the boxes that you need.
I mean, go back to you looking at my history.
Yeah.
I've got C++ certificates.
Yeah.
And I've done Sun and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's ages ago.
Yeah.
You have to be up to date. You've got to be modern. You've got to be funky. You've got to be in the game at the moment.
Yeah, so from a technical awarding body perspective, you've got the teaching qualifications, plus you've got those qualifications. You can teach, but does that mean that you're going to be relevant and up to date in terms of teaching in this day and age? So I get that. So I want to move on, if I may, just to your fantastic newsletter that comes out every Sunday, and it's this recent one is 44 pages, and that was a little bit of a digest from your usual one. Sometimes it can go up to 60, 70 pages, even 80, 90 pages, and you produce that on a weekly basis. Goes out to a tremendous amount of people and the key people within the sector. I think it's 3,000 plus people that you tell us a little bit about what that is and how it's come about.
It's come out for its 10th year now.
10th year. So every week you get a newsletter out on a Sunday afternoon. So your Sundays are preparing a newsletter.
We've never failed to deliver any week over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Most of it is created ongoing throughout the week.
Yeah.
So as things happen, they go into it.
Yeah.
Of course, just like FE Week and just like other tests and people like that, things change.
Yes.
And the week before last was 50 pages. This week, as you say, 40 odd. And you have to keep it relevant.
Right.
And I try to keep just to 5 or 6 pages of news.
Right.
And the rest is bids, contracts, grants, funds, which is sort of relevant stuff to people in the industry.
Mm.
But it doesn't just go out to people in the industry, it also goes out to employers.
Right.
So I have some large employers that actually receive it each week.
Oh.
I think for me, it was started very small, like an acorn, and it's grown and grown and grown. Do I enjoy doing it on a Sunday? Yes and no. Some Sundays it's
hit and miss.
I might sit up on a Saturday night at 12 o'clock on a Saturday night just because I've got something going on a Sunday. I have a system which is an automatic send-out system, so I only have to do one that one then gets sent out to 3,000 plus. I think it's 3,022 people this week.
Okay. Just to clarify, it is a free resource.
Oh, yeah.
It's there for anybody, and we obviously give you details at the end, and you'll have an opportunity to share your contact. But they can contact you, be put onto your mailing list, and hopefully receive that on a weekly basis.
Also, it's if they've got news, information, events, anything that's of interest to the industry. I don't look at it as being about EEVT. It's about the industry. So it's more, if you like, a paperback version, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I know you've been very open in terms of people sharing information. Whether that's roles, jobs, or whether that's specific, pair working or any partnership working and so forth. So it is a newsletter for the industry where the industry can contribute and have their input. And I know it's very widely read, and I'm an avid reader myself, and thank you for allowing us to advertise and promote the FE podcast, which you kindly have allowed me to do so. So in terms of it's in terms of your sort of so you've got a diverse customer base. You do. You do your strategy days, you do your partnership development. There's a lot of talk at this moment in time about RoadTap, and we had we spoke about RoadTap last week as well. What's the sense with the independent training providers? And I'm focusing a little bit more maybe on the smaller providers who often are overlooked by colleges and the larger organisations, and they're the future really in some aspects of this sector.
Yeah, you've hit me on a real raw nerve there. Okay. Right, real raw nerve.
As long as we stay friends.
I've just actually turned down some work.
Okay.
With a client who I've known for many years.
Right.
And it's all about the change in the application process is quite dynamic. And so you've got to be up to date, and you've got to understand what they're looking for and why they're looking for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a tick box anymore. It's very focused.
Mm-hmm.
And also there's this, if you like, thought process that if Ofsted's going to come in, they can see your ROAP application.
Right.
And I don't know if you know about ROAP before. You used to publish it and it's up there and you could go in and bring it down and so forth. But this client was saying to me, how much is it? So I told him how much it was. And he said, okay, go ahead and do it. So I started to do it. And he kept saying to me, well, you know what to write.
Yeah, it's very specific, very, very specific to the...
I haven't got that information. It's in your HR department. Oh, right. Well, I will get it to you. Then the HR department said, well, we can't give this out for GDPR. And it's like... And I was backwards and forwards. And I was saying to him, this stuff, I want to come and sit down with you and go through this with you at your premises. He said, no. He said, I'm off to Italy. He said, I'm going on holiday to Italy. Now they've released things on COVID, so I'm going to go and take the missus on holiday.
Right.
And I said, well, that's great. This is an important thing for your organisation. You've got 180 apprentices and you've decided to tell me you're going on holiday. Fine. Find someone else to do it. And he said, well, why are you saying that? And I said, because this is your livelihood. This is your staff's future, your company's future.
Yeah.
And also, I need to do the job to the best of my ability. And I can only do that if I've got the right information. And so there is a lot of people thinking that it's the same old same, where it's not. So that's my take on it. They've thought it through to their own ends. And I mean, the small providers are going to find it very difficult because where the small providers are sitting there waiting for it to open, and it most probably now won't open until January or maybe April next year.
Okay. Okay. Obviously, we'll keep our listener updated in terms of what's going on and so forth, and I'm sure you'll do that with your newsletter as well. But what other hot topics are there, Steve, at this moment in time that's on your mind, on the mind of independent providers, and generally the sector as a whole, really?
You've got the new Matrix accreditation.
Right. Okay.
Growth company.
Right.
They've won the right to run that nationally.
Right.
They've done a consultation.
Right.
They've come up with a new, if you like, look at the matrix. And that's been sort of agreed.
Okay.
And they're going to be rolling that out from about January.
Okay. And I know this is a topic which is very well known within the sector, but just to say, somebody who's listening in on this who doesn't know what matrix is, just in simple terms, what we're talking about.
Right. And if you're looking at the term general stuff, it's IAG. So Information Device Guidance. Yeah. But it's not only just about the IAG side of it. It's a bit more about quality interaction between the different, if you like, themes within the matrix.
Right.
Just saying I do IAG is not enough anymore.
Right.
And it's taken that it became a bit, get matrix. And then we do it, but we don't know why we do it. We just do it because it's in the contract. We've got to do it.
Yes. Yes.
And there's also the thing with the Baker Clause now, and the Baker Clause with schools, and their side of IAG, they're being forced now to take it on where they were ignoring it before.
Right. Okay.
So it's now becoming high priority, the IAG.
It's something that the sector has been talking about for years and years and years.
Yes.
But as you said, the spotlight is further on now, not just in terms of independent providers, but colleges and schools as well, and making sure the fact that people are given the right advice. I mean, we remember careers advisors from back in the day.
Yes.
And it's just, it was a completely different environment at the time.
Yeah.
But I think it's something where we keep talking about the job skill market and the skills market and how it keeps changing. And I know the government has got their own website and portal, but this is something that's very, very important, I think, for any learner to be really signposted correctly and go through that process and in a way which is a little bit more robust and thorough.
If you're a young person at school,
yes,
and I was young once,
okay,
you're faced with going through school, and you're going to do these tests and you're going to do these exams, which you've had loads of problems with them over the last 18 months, and then you're going to go out into the big world. And are you going to go to university? Can you folks afford university? Can you afford for the rest of your life to be looking at paying off for a university? What is there out there that you could do? In a lot of ways, schools never used to talk about apprenticeships because they didn't get so many ticks. The school would say, oh yes, we had 100 young people leave and go to university this year. They didn't shout about 30 or 40 went on apprenticeships.
Yes.
So it's crucial that they get at a young age that IAG to help them on their way, to let them know what's available.
Yes.
But also to mentor them through. Because quite often you get a situation where somebody goes on to an apprenticeship and they take that apprenticeship for a very good reason, but that very good reason is not what they thought it was. As an example, a youngster who perhaps looks after their niece, nephew, and does babysitting, and they enjoy it, they have great fun with their niece and nephew. So they then go into childcare as an apprentice. But after about 2 months in childcare, they go, no, I can't do this. Having 60 youngsters screaming all the time and running around, they go, oh, it's not what I thought it would be. So you need to have that, not just leave and fall out of that apprenticeship, counsel them, mentor them, coach them, and then say, right, okay, you obviously care for people, perhaps you might want to go into care.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that is the only option, but it's actually dealing with the situation and not just saying, oh, we've just lost an apprentice, they didn't like it or whatever.
No,
you have to help them along the way.
So, Steve, prior to us hitting the record button here, you and I were talking about BTEC and the world there, subcontracting, and in addition to that, the changes that have happened in the education department. And, if we to relay that conversation, that's probably an hour conversation, so we're not going to go into that level of detail, but just surmise that if you can, just a little bit about, so, even if it's an element where somebody can Google and research themselves, just some of those
Well,
points.
I think everybody in the industry knows there's new education bill.
Yeah.
And the new education bill has gone through Parliament.
Yeah.
It's now gone to the Lords. The Lords have sat down and I think they made 32 or 52 different amendments.
Yeah.
It's now going back to House of Commons. One of the key things in that was them trying to do away with BTECs.
Right.
And there's been a big uproar amongst MPs and the Lords saying, you're going to scrap them, and you're scrapping them because you think they might overlap with T-levels.
Yeah.
But how do you know the T-levels are going to be a success?
Right.
So they're saying, why don't you keep them for the next 3 to 4 years?
Right.
And then you can actually measure whether they're still valid, still required. Maybe the T-levels don't take off like you think they will.
Right. Okay.
Personally speaking, and I'm
Yes.
going to be very personal about
Okay.
this, BTEC's for me done a lot for the BAME
Yeah. Community. Yeah.
population in the country.
Yeah.
Done a lot for me. I've done some BTECs. And also, the BTECs also has increased what I call the white social mobility. Because there's been this sort of thing. Everybody talks about, literacy and numeracy. A lot of the BTECs in functional skills and so forth have helped as a stepping stone to get people out of, if you like, I won't call it ghettos, but areas of deprivation to move on. And also, I see lots of people who do lots of good in the world, charities and people like that, and individuals who help people. And a lot of them went to college, done a BTEC, and it set them on their course for life.
Yeah.
And yes, they've gone on to do other courses and yes, get other qualifications, but I don't believe they would have been able to do that without that starting point of the BTECs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the sector as a whole has got a lot of warmth for BTEC. I mean, I myself did a BTEC back in, thinking of the year now, 89, 90, 91, 92. BTEC first diploma, BTEC National Diploma in Business and Finance. And that brand is very, very prominent, very well known with employers as well.
Exactly.
So the sector has got a lot of warmth for it, but at the end of the day, the employers recognise it, understand it. It's going to take a long while for the employers to start understanding really what T-level is. And at the end of the day, it's all about vocational qualifications, and employers, really want to understand, what am I getting for this? What's the capability of the individual, and really the skill sets. And it takes a while for businesses and employers to understand it fully and be explained in a way what this is. So yes, we have this love and regards for BTEC, and the thinking behind T-levels is not bad as well, to open the market up, and they've gone through a long consultation process, but it still takes time to embed. I'm not going to relay all the conversation, but it's probably the right thing in terms of re-looking at that in a way, and maybe slowing down some aspects of it before we phase things out.
The other big sort of point at the moment is subcontracting.
Yes.
And there is this ITP, independent training providers and subcontracting.
Yeah.
They have a different set of rules to the colleges.
Yes.
And they have a different set of requirements within those rules that is unfair sometimes to the primes. Because the primes have got to go out and do audits, pay for an audit.
Yeah.
And they've got to make sure that they've done all their due diligence. And they then got to ask permission.
Yeah.
And then you've got ITPs that are very small, very niche, and maybe doing great work, but in a very small sector.
Yeah.
For many years, I worked with successful mums.
Yeah.
So that's getting women returners, single mums, back into work. Very niche, very specialist.
Yeah.
I think if you talk to Jade Knight, who created Successful Mums, she's somewhere like 7,000 women she's helped since its inception.
Right.
And that's very focused and very specialist. But when you look at it from the ESFA's point of view,
Yeah.
there's no flexibility there. You've got to do a qualification that fits what we say.
Yes.
Otherwise, we won't give you any money.
Yes, and you and I both know that qualifications they've gone through a bit of a period of culling. So a lot of qualifications that were there, the shorter ones and so forth, they've changed now.
Yes.
The qualification landscape changes quite regularly. So sometimes you are trying to pigeonhole and put people into a qualification box where really sometimes the shorter courses that they're after. Yeah, fully with you in terms of impact. And sometimes it's like training at 11 o'clock and applying at 12 o'clock. It's the short courses that has the biggest impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you look at something like the SIA,
the Security Industry Association qualification.
Those for security guards, they've redone the standards for that.
Yeah.
But they've also done the retakes. So anybody that is already holding a licence has to do their retake.
Yeah.
And that starts from this month.
Okay.
However, we've lost a lot of people.
Yes.
And if you listen to the news, a lot of people that came from the EU that were SIA qualified have now gone back to their own countries.
Yeah.
A lot of people that were on furlough for some of the large nightclubs and discos.
Yes.
Showing my age there. Those people were put on furlough.
Yeah.
And then decided to go and get a job with Amazon.
Steve, I'm going to try to bring things a little bit to a close, but I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot, if I may. Peer meetup. You and I have started this about 5-6 years ago.
Yes.
And it was there. That's a free networking event for providers to come on board. We had big support from the awarding bodies. We had IQA.
Yeah.
We had Pearson. We had NOCN. We had all of these awarding bodies supporting and backing us, and we had independent training providers and good discussions and so forth. Is there a need for Peer Meetup? And
there is. I'm going to jump in with something on my own bandwagon.
Okay, please.
I'm one of the 5 founders of the Confederation of Education Consultants.
Yes.
And that's going from strength to strength at the moment.
Okay.
And I do a lot of the admin for that, and I'm sort of the forward face on LinkedIn.
Okay.
But it's no means down to me. There's 7 people on the committee.
Right.
So that takes up a lot of my time.
Yeah.
We're doing a whole raft of different webinars and stuff like that.
If I may interject, for those that don't know, what is it? Just explain a little bit about it if you can.
Well, the CEC, or Confederation of Education Consultants, is a group of like-minded people.
Right.
And they sign up to having data protection. They sign up to having insurance. and they sign up to some, if you like, rules, how they'll abide by those rules.
Like a code of conduct.
Code of conduct,
yeah.
And we found that there are, I think the last count, we had 86 business consultants, education business consultants, who couldn't become members because they haven't got any, they haven't got data protection, or they haven't got insurance, or they haven't got both. Which we found rather strange. But there again, it's an expense. And there again, it's also for the industry. We've heard some horrific stories where training providers have come under a situation where they've lost a lot of money.
Steve, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your company. Much appreciate that. And thank you for driving all the way to sunny Birmingham. So this was our third episode of FE Podcast. A lovely conversation with the lovely Steve Lawrence, a personal friend of mine. He's helped me in the past on many, many occasions. He was our head judge back in the day with Asian Apprenticeship Awards when we set that up in 2016. And he supported myself personally and Pathway Group as an organisation, and he's my go-to for many reasons. And as he's a personal friend of mine, and it's been my honour and privilege to have him here, to welcome him here. This is FE Podcast. It's Further Education Sector Insights. This is what we do. We have a conversation with people who are at the front line, who've got a different perspective, different dynamic in terms of, the sector. It's not just about headline news that we can all Google and look up. It's a slightly different way of looking at things, and that's what we try and bring to the table. If people are interested, if you think that you've got something that our listeners, our audiences will benefit from a conversation, I'm very open to having conversations with people. Please get a hold of me on fepodcast.co.uk. I'm also on social media. I'm a bit of a social animal in the footsteps of Steve. Please get in touch and let's carry on with the journey of promoting the sector and doing what we can. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the latest news and insights from the further education sector. Safaraz Ali will be keeping his ear to the ground and will be back soon with new developments and comment from some of the top professionals in the field.